Breaking news, the Las Vegas Raiders have traded for Seahawks quarterback Geno Smith. I'm Mitchell Renz, host of the Raiders Report, and coming up here on today's show, I'm going to tell you everything that you need to know about the Raiders trading for Geno, because I'll be real, I don't know if it's a move that says I'm trying to win a Super Bowl right now, but the Raiders clearly have a plan in place, and I'm going to tell you what that plan is on today's show. Here's my promise, though. You might not agree with everything that I say on this show. You might not agree with everything that I say during free agency, which we're going to be live every single day next week. But when Raiders news happens, I'm going live, and you're going to get a video about it. I got commitment to excellence. I put out a video every day on this channel, and if you want to rock with the nation, this is the place to do it when breaking news happens, so make sure you're subscribed. Let's talk about the Geno Smith trade. And very interesting that it ended up being the Davante Adams pick. If I was somebody who was amongst the Raiders, I would look at the fact that you were able to trade essentially Davante Adams for Geno Smith. And I know sometimes when you see the third round pick, there's some people who are like, I don't know if I love the idea around it. You traded Davante Adams for Geno Smith. That is a win. Here's what's going to be interesting. And literally as the time that I am looking at this video live and I'm making it with you, there is an update here, which we'll get to in a moment, but Dianna Russini reported that Geno is expected to get a new deal with the Raiders at $40 to $45 million a year. I am somebody that believes that Geno Smith is the Raiders' plan at a bridge quarterback. However, and this is where I'm not going to lie, this report makes me a little bit nervous. According to Jordan Schultz, the Raiders plan to make Geno Smith the quarterback of the future. They have begun negotiating a long-term contract that will reflect that. Not there yet, but headed towards a Smith receiving a multi-year extension in Las Vegas. I'm going to tell you this right now. If the Raiders plan to make Geno Smith the quarterback of the future, I might have a mental breakdown on this show, because that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. If you give him a multi-year extension that essentially gives you an out, and that out is after 2 to 3 years, then I am okay with it. I need to see the details in that contract, but I'm telling you this right now. When the Raiders went out and they traded for Geno Smith, the thought process that I had in my mind, because you're only giving up a third-round pick, the thought process that I had in my mind was that the Raiders traded for Geno Smith to essentially be a bridge quarterback that Pete Carroll trusts, and then in the next 2 years or so, you have the quarterback of your future. Maybe you draft a Shedeur Sanders to learn underneath Geno for 2 years. Maybe you draft a Jackson Dart to learn underneath Geno for 2 years. Maybe you draft a Jalen Milroe to learn underneath Geno Smith for 2 years, and then you hand the keys to the car to Smith. But the report that just came out from Jordan Schultz that indicates that the Raiders are going to make Geno Smith the quarterback of their future, that does scare me a little bit. Now, I still got to be able to see what the breakdown of the contract is going to be, and we don't know exactly what it is yet. But making a 34-year-old quarterback the future plan does scare me a little bit. I do wonder, though, if the future plan is them just saying, hey, I'm going to give you, let's say, a 2 to 3 year contract, but it's really going to be a 2-year contract. As long as it's 2 years, I'm okay with it. Anything more than 2 years for Geno Smith, I worry that the Raiders are going to tie themselves in a situation much like the New Orleans Saints are in right now, where they're going, I don't want to pay Derek Carr the amount of money we're paying. Or the Atlanta Falcons, where they're going, I don't want to pay Kirk Cousins after we just drafted Michael Penix. You see a lot of teams give out these big deals. The Giants with Daniel Jones. You can't bury yourself in a veteran contract because you can really, really hurt yourself down the road. I don't know what the details are, but when I first started this video, when you saw me start this video, I was a lot more confident about the Raiders' plan than I am right now. But that is the exact reason why you should tune into our show when we go live, because sometimes shit like that happens, and I love it. So now I want y'all to grade the trade. A, B, C, D, or F. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show. So that means when you're about to get hit with a YouTube ad break, I want you to scroll on down, give me your answer, give me the grade to the Geno Smith contract. Raiders receive Geno. The Seattle Seahawks receive third-round pick number 73 overall. The reason why I am going to give this trade a B grade, I am a grader where 8 and A is great, B is good, C is average, D is bad, F is a fail. Max Crosby's fired up. He loves the trade, which I know might surprise some people. But the reason why I'm going to give it a B grade is because if the Raiders brought in Geno Smith to be a bridge, a quarterback that Pete Carroll trusts to help him groom the next quarterback of the future, I love that plan. It's not a Super Bowl winning plan, but it's a plan that makes sense to me. If the Raiders' plan is to trade for Geno Smith and make him the future of this team, which is what was just reported by Jordan Schultz, that is a D plan to me. That's a bad plan. And I like Geno a lot. But saying that he's going to be the future of your team, that makes me think that you only think that the future of your team is as long as Pete Carroll is your head coach. And when you have Chip Kelly, I think that you want Chip Kelly to stay as your head coach. So again, more really interesting rumors that are going down. And speaking of Max Crosby, according to Albert Breer, listen to this, okay? The Seahawks and Geno Smith were far apart in negotiations, with Seattle closer to around $35 million. Smith's camp wants around $45 million per year, which is one of the reasons why the trade ended up going down. Here's also what Albert Breer reported, which I am happy the Raiders didn't trade Max Crosby, because everybody's been saying the Las Vegas Seahawks or the Seattle Raiders. I've already seen it because I dealt with it during the New England Patriot bullshit days. But at the same time, if they would have traded away Max Crosby for Geno Smith and DK Metcalf, people would have had a meltdown. I don't think it would have been as big as Mavs fans with Luka Doncic, but it would have been a big-time meltdown. So the fact that the Raiders said no to a DK Metcalf, Geno Smith for Max Crosby trade is a great, great sign. But speaking of Max Crosby, when they gave him the cap that they did, so again, he signed a 3-year, $106 million deal, $91 million guaranteed. The full contract looks something like 5 years for about $150 million. But usually when teams give a contract like that, they backload it. They put lower numbers at the beginning, higher numbers at the end. When they did this contract, in my mind, because there's $0 million guaranteed these 3 years here, when they did that, my mind said that their Super Bowl window is right here. This is when they're going to go out and try to win. So in my mind, I thought that they signed or traded for Geno Smith, have him be the bridge quarterback, bingo bongo, let a quarterback like Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart, Shedeur Sanders fill in the name right here. They're learning with Tom Brady, learning with Geno Smith, the quarterback that Pete Carroll trusts, and then you decide to move on from Geno Smith, and then you have a quarterback that you've been grooming in a cheap year for Max Crosby's contract, and you're trying to win. The other thing maybe you're doing, maybe you're planning for Arch Manning in 2027, which is the year I think that he ends up coming out when you follow reports from people around the Manning family. So again, the breaking news that just happened, the Las Vegas Raiders, they traded for Geno Smith. They gave the Seattle Seahawks a third-round pick, number 73 overall. But one of the things that I want people to think about is also the Raiders could still sign a quarterback, and a quarterback that they could potentially sign, I'm telling you right now, is Zach Wilson. So hear me out. It wouldn't surprise me if the Raiders saw what Geno Smith looked like with the New York Jets compared to the way he looks after joining Pete Carroll and the Seattle Seahawks. So look at somebody like Geno before he ended up going with Pete Carroll, and then after he ended up going with Pete Carroll. 68.5, he has a winning percentage after meeting Pete Carroll. The touchdown to interception ratio is a lot different. I'm only bringing up Zach Wilson's name simply because the Raiders are showing interest in him. And according to Vincent Bonsignore, this is from back probably a week ago, it's not a rumor, they are pursuing him. And it honestly wouldn't shock me if the Raiders thought the Jets are just a dumpster fire for quarterbacks because Pete has already been able to rescue Geno. Can Pete rescue somebody like Zach Wilson? They bring in Zach Wilson to compete with Aiden O'Connell. That's the young quarterback battle. And at age 25, if the Raiders don't want to draft a quarterback, I still think that they do, you could look at somebody also like Zach Wilson in free agency. I know it's something that people don't maybe want to hear, but I do think it could potentially happen. And my job on this show is to tell you everything that I think. Just like I think that there's a chance, because other breaking news that happened today was the Raiders are expected to move on from Andre James. You know what I think is going to happen to Andre James? I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to trade for Andre James. So hear me out. This was a video that I was getting ready to drop right before the Geno Smith stuff ended up happening. And it's, again, why I want people to subscribe, and it's why I want people to watch this live show. I personally think that the Raiders are also right now trying to work on a deal where John Spytek's talking to Liam Cohen. So hear me out loud and clear, okay? This is where I think it started. The Jacksonville Jaguars lost their center yesterday. Mitch Morse decided to retire. Mitch Morse retires from the NFL. Then the Jacksonville Jaguars plan to release Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk is available. What happens? Christian Kirk is traded to the Houston Texans for a 2026 7th-round pick, okay? When a team announces that they're going to release a player, there's still a chance that they could trade him. I think that the Jags traded Kirk to the Texans for that 2026 7th to trade it to the Raiders for Andre James to be able to replace Mitch Morse. Liam Cohen, offensive coordinator last year for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, brand new head coach now in Jacksonville. I know he's got a great relationship with John Spytek, who worked down in Tampa Bay last season, who is now the general manager of the Raiders. Sometimes teams are working behind closed doors. And I'm just saying, I think by the time NFL free agency hits, the Raiders end up trading Andre James for a 2026 7th-round pick to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but I like to speculate. It's part of the fun thing that I do on this show. And if you like that type of thought process, hit that subscribe button. If you don't like me talking about what goes in my mind, I'm going to be honest, this is not going to be the show for you. But when breaking news happens, when big stuff goes on and goes down around the Raiders, I don't care that it's Friday night. I mean, I do a little bit. I'm not going to lie. So you know what? If you're watching this right now, I'm staying live here on the Raiders Report. We're going to throw some beers back. It's going to get wet and wild because you know what? I'm going to celebrate that the Raiders upgraded at the quarterback position. I'm going to celebrate that Geno Smith is going to be this guy's. He's going to be the future. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But what I am going to celebrate is we upgraded at the most important position, and it's somebody Pete Carroll believes in. I told myself this year, I'm going to trust this regime. I'm going to buy in, and that's what I'm doing. So if you're buying in as well, pull up to the Raiders Report because shit's about to go down.